Today I want to show you how to take this piece of furniture I picked up at a local thrift shop, distress it, and paint it to make it look vintage. Here are some materials that you will need. First, you're going to need some type of tarp or plastic sheeting to put your project on. Next, we're going to need a screwdriver that will help us to distress the piece of furniture. A trick to also distress the furniture is a bag of screws or a bag of nails, whatever you have handy. You can rub across the furniture to leave small indentions in the wood. Our next item will be a candlestick. You can use any kind of unscented candle of your choice. Our next item will be steel wool. This is coarse grit, but you can use any type of grit of your choice. Next, you're going to need some type of sandpaper. This is coarse and fine grit sandpaper, and it's already cut into squares, ready to go for our sander. Next, you're going to need a little bit of wood glue. This is Carpenter's wood glue. It's the strong formula, whatever is available. Next, you're going to need some disposable brushes. And then might be a good idea to pick up a couple disposable gloves, a few disposable cups, several paint brushes. Those are 2-inch paint brushes, a couple rags, this is our first coat of paint, and this is going to be our second coat of paint. Finally, some stain. Once again, the sander. And some polyurethane for that protective finish at the very end. Now, as you can see, this looks completely different from how the very first picture showed it. I decided to drastically change it and make it into a bookshelf rather than just an awkward shelf. Put new trim, new molding, a new top on it, and on the bottom also put a new back on it. Alright, now it's time to have a little fun. The first thing I did was took my screwdriver and began to put a lot of indentions along the side of the bookshelf. Actually just all over the bookshelf and just a lot of different places. I wanted this thing to look very rustic, very lived in, very worn piece of furniture. Now I begin to sand off part of it because this is where I will begin to make this part of the furniture look cracked and worn. Alright, the next technique we're going to work on is a cracked finish on the paint. So you're going to go ahead and get your wood glue and a disposable brush and just begin to paint on the surface of the furniture. Allow the glue to become tacky and then begin to paint over that with your second coat of paint and let it dry, and as it dries it will form that look. Next, we're going to take some wax and just begin to rub onto the surface. Now what this will do is when you paint over it, it'll paint everything but the wax, and then you'll come back behind that with the steel wool and you'll gently begin to sand off the wax, and it'll make a great distressed look. Here you can see me painting the base coat on the piece. It doesn't have to be perfect because there will be another coat going on top of this. And remember, it's supposed to look vintage, not perfect. Alright, those dark areas are where I painted with glue, looking for that crackle finish. And what I've done here is I just applied the base coat, and now I'm taking this damp rag and just wiping it across the top of this base coat to give it an extra worn look on the piece. Alright, so now you can see the crackle areas after they have dried. The glue turns clear, and all you can see is the coat underneath the white. Alright, the next thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and get your disposable gloves, a rag, and your can of stain, and just go ahead and begin to wipe down the piece. Now it just depends on the type of base coat paint that you used, whether it is a gloss, a semi-gloss, a flat. It depends on how the stain will react to the piece. The paint that I had, the stain didn't really respond to it very well, so it kind of soaked it up rather than staying on top and providing an antique-like finish. Alright, now you can see just how I rubbed the stain on, just in a variety of different ways. That marking right there is from sandpaper just going against the grain, just really just trying to rough up the piece. Alright, now on to the top. Now here we're going to take a little bit of our gray paint, and we're just going to begin to go back and forth across the top. Don't worry about putting on too much paint, because the last step that we will do before putting the polyurethane on will be to sand the piece down to get it to the desired look. Alright, if you have ever put a drink down on the table and it's left some type of ring, sometimes those rings cannot be taken off, and so here what I've done is taken a little bit of paint, put it on the end of this disposable cup, and just kind of roll it around to give it kind of a watermark look on the top of it. Alright, so now we're finally going to sand the top. As you can see, the brown from the very base coat of the top is starting to show through, as well as the gray is blending in with the white. You can also see faint rings from the cup that we just painted on a few minutes ago. Alright, as you can see with this side, it took off a little bit more than I wanted to with the sanding. So here I'm going back with a little bit of the off-white, and I'm just painting it back on to cover up what I don't want to be covered, and just making it look a little bit nicer. And finally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some steel wool, just begin to scratch away at some of the paint. And the final product. If you like or have any questions, please leave a comment below.